The honourable member for the Western Arctic.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to inform you that I'm going to share my time with the member from Joliette. Mr. Speaker, the motion before us reads that the House, recognizing the broad-based demand for action, call upon the government to make the improvement of economic outputs of First Nations, Inuit and Métis a central focus of Budget 2013, and to commit to action on treaty implementation and full meaningful consultation on legislation that affects the rights of Aboriginal Canadians as required by domestic and international law. So I want to take some time here to focus on the Northwest Territories, which is a singularly unique area of Canada where we have settled and unsettled claims. And the best way that we've found to improve the economic situation of our Indigenous people in the Northwest Territories is to settle land resources and self-government claims. In the parts of the Northwest Territories where the claims have been settled, people have increased prosperity, and the private sector, which wants to invest there, has certainty in the regulatory process. That's very clear. The opposite is true for those areas of the Northwest Territories which still have unsettled claims. In testimony before the members of the Aboriginal Affairs and Northern Development Committee during hearings in Yellowknife on Bill C-47, the NWT and Nunavut Mining Association and the NWT Chamber of Commerce both stressed the value of having settled claims. Some examples of how settled claims can improve the economic situation of First Nations people, Inuit people. I'll speak to two of them. One is the Inuvialuit. The Inuvialuit were the first to settle the claims in the Northwest Territories. They did a very good job of it in 1984. Excellent claim settlement. They took over large pieces of their traditional territory. They got surface and subsurface rights and in the oil-rich Mackenzie Delta and the Beaufort Sea area. They were in a position to take advantage of resource development, resource exploration in that area, and they've built an amazing Inuvialuit Development Corporation. It owns outfits like Canadian North Aviation. You may have flown on it yourself. It owns the Northern Transportation Company Limited. It has investments and opportunities for Inuvialuit people throughout the Northwest Territories at all levels of employment. It's through this settlement that the Inuvialuit were to get their heads into economic development rather than spending their time trying to fight with this federal government over land claim settlements. And we can talk about the Clecho government, settled under the Liberal government in 2004. Their land extends through the areas where we've diamond-rich areas of the Northwest Territories. They have rights to large areas of land, surface, subsurface. They have opportunities on that land. What have they done with them? They've created the Clecho Development Corporation. That development corporation, in less than 10 years, has gross revenue in excess of $130 million, employing 800 people. This is the kind of effort that can be made by First Nations when they achieve control over traditional lands and territories. Not when they're stuck on reserves, not when they don't have the opportunity to participate fully in the resource economy. However, this is not the case in the areas of the Northwest Territories that don't have settled claims. In the Decho and the Quechua regions, both incredibly rich areas of the Northwest Territories, the Decho with its gas deposits, the Quechua once again with mining and great opportunities as well, the negotiations on land claims are stalled. They've been stalled with this government for many years. And much of the fault lies with the federal government through actions like continually changing negotiators, never giving negotiators the ability to make decisions, revisiting areas which have been agreed to in negotiations, and changing negotiation mandates. These are all things that completely obfuscate the system. In these two regions, there is much uncertainty. The investment is difficult. Now there are brave companies, and I speak to Avalon as one company that's going through the environmental assessment process in there, but they won awards for their ability to talk to the First Nations in those regions and to bring them into the process themselves. So we see industry taking over the role of government here in providing the authority to First Nations to make decisions on their land. That's what it takes. in unsettled areas. Chief Roy Fabian of the Kat'ladiche First Nation recently told the Aboriginal Affairs Committee during C-47 hearings that this is the legislation on Surface Rights Board's access. This legislation is a serious matter which strikes at the heart of Treaty 8 and jeopardizes our attempts at reconciliation with Canada. This legislation appears to be an attempt to circumvent our land claims process and undermine our authority on our own lands. I want to make it clear, he says, if this bill is passed, will not be recognized as valid law on Kat'ladiche territory. If the federal government attempts to impose this legislation on our treaty land, then we'll consider our legal options to oppose this legislation and resist every attempt to grant access orders on the land. So where does that leave industry? Where does that leave certainty? Where are we going with that? That's not working, is it? Chief Fabian highlights a key element in current federal Aboriginal relations, that of federal action or inaction causing a rising sense of dissatisfaction among Canada's First Nations, Aboriginal people, which is leading to movements like Idle No More. Leading directly there. Leading to a movement that we can all get behind. We all should not be idle on these issues. We should not be obfuscating. We should not be trying to make this a harder thing to accomplish, to get land claims settled in this country. Canada's Aboriginal people are no longer content to just sit patiently. Well, Ottawa gets around to finally addressing their concerns. They're idle no more. Congratulations. It should come from all Canadians. Congratulations to First Nations. We're glad that you're not idle no more. We're glad that you're standing up for your rights. We're glad that you're standing up for the land and the environment. These are things that have to be done. They're not being done by this government. First Nations can provide the leadership. Canada's First Nations want full settlement of their claims on traditional territories and will not wait while federal negotiators play games. They will be idle no more. They will be idle no more when it comes to getting these claims settled. Mr. Speaker, Canada's Aboriginal people want to be treated fairly. They want to build the economies of their country, their communities and regions. They're not opposed to development. I've showed that. Rather, they want to be full partners in development. I've showed that again. And have a say in how development occurs. However, because delays of the federal government, they're no longer willing to wait. Let's Canadians get behind them. Let's all be idle no more when it comes to First Nations issues.